Hello everyone, welcome to the Scumdogs Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's Cryptid Corner mini-episode, I have a couple of stories of bizarre phenomena, folks. One, we have a werewolf-like creature that was seen, folks, so another Dogman story, and we also have an encounter with a Gettysburg ghost. Let's get into the first story titled, White-Eyed Werewolf-Like Creature Watches Rochdale Women, through Kitchen Window. Let's get into the story now, folks. A woman living near Woodland in Rochdale, Greater Manchester, encountered a tall, hairless, canine-featured humanoid outside her kitchen window in October 2021. The figure stood silently only a few feet away, watching her through the glass, and the experience permanently changed how she moves through her own home after dark. I imagine it would, folks. Because this entity would probably basically terrorize anyone who actually saw it, folks. It would just leave you with questions and fear. Let's get into the story now. Life near the woods. Hello, this incident took place on October 2021 in Rochdale, Greater Manchester, United Kingdom. I was living alone after breaking up with my ex. I spent most evenings upstairs playing video games and watching YouTube videos. I did not really have much of a social life, but I was comfortable with that. Until this incident, I had never felt uneasy inside my own house. At night, I would occasionally go downstairs to the kitchen to make a drink. The kitchen window looks out over my overgrown garden, which borders woodland. It is a rural neighborhood and becomes very quiet at night, making it a favorable environment for wildlife. I frequently saw foxes and deer around the property. When the kitchen lights were on, however, I could barely see more than a few feet beyond the window. The glass acted almost like a mirror because it was so dark outside. That's interesting, folks. So, on most nights, it was so dark she could barely see anything, and then this entity appeared. Let's read on. The creature at the window. On this particular night, those few visible feet were all the creature needed to reveal itself. I had finished making my drink when I looked up and out of the window. I had not noticed anything while entering the kitchen or preparing the drink. Staying outside was a bipedal creature. It was extremely thin, but quite tall, with bent hind legs and no visible hair. This may sound ridiculous, but it reminded me of Professor Lupin after transforming into werewolf in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. This creature, however, was taller and more humanoid. Its mouth was small, but protruded slightly like a canine muzzle. I could not see any ears. Its eyes were tiny and completely white. The creature stood there staring at me. Its head was tilted to one side, and its lower jaw hung slightly open. Sounds horrifying, folks. And yeah, it almost sounds like a combination of a werewolf, a classic werewolf, and the movie werewolf in Harry Potter. Let's read on, though, folks. Frozen in terror. I had no idea how long it had been staying there. I had already been in the kitchen for approximately a minute before I bothered to look out the window. It could have been watching me the entire time. That's why I mentioned how dark, basically, it was out there, folks, because I thought this entity was probably watching this woman who had been basically casing her home and watching her for God knows how long. And I'm glad. I think I might be right about that idea, folks. Once again, let's continue. I completely froze. People sometimes believe they know how they would react in a frightening situation, but I was unable to move. I was mentally commanding my body to do something, but I felt icy cold and paralyzed with fear. After approximately 15 seconds, although it felt much longer, I finally managed to move. I ran out of the kitchen, but I did not dare take my eyes off the creature. As I moved away, its head rotated and followed my movement. I ran upstairs where I felt somewhat safer. Good. Though a lot of people would say you shouldn't go upstairs, folks. Especially if you had a gun. You should get a gun. Maybe basically, put yourself in a place where you, if you need to, run out of the house. And stuff like that. I suppose being upstairs is a good idea, but no, it ain't, folks. I agree with basically the notion that you should not basically be in a position where you have to jump out the window of a house on the second floor. Being in a position to protect yourself is far, more important, I would have to say. But once again, we can save on these ideas until after you read the rest of the article. Lingering fear. After all this time I still avoid entering the kitchen at night, except when I absolutely necessary I need to do so. I prepare everything I need before it gets dark, then stay upstairs for the rest of the evening. If I must go into the kitchen, I rush in, grab whatever I need, and I leave as quickly as possible. You know that feeling when you turn off the downstairs lights and suddenly feel as though something is going to chase you while you run upstairs? That's how I feel every time I enter my kitchen after dark. To this day, I instinctively feel that the werewolf-like creature is still watching me. And I agree with her. Yeah, I completely agree with this witness that most likely this entity is still in the area. But then again, folks, maybe it's just because this seems like the kind of area, with how dark it gets at night, folks, that, yeah, something like this would basically still be in the general area. It could be a spirit, some sort of nature entity, folks, or indeed maybe it was a Dogman, because it sounds just as alien as a lot of descriptions of alien beings in Dogman that I've heard, folks. So, what do you make of this entity, folks? Horrifying? For sure. Would you stay in the same house after seeing this entity, or would you move as quickly as possible if you were able to? I would definitely think that this woman should think about moving. But then again, maybe she can't afford to get out of there, folks. I can understand that too. Because it sounds like this entity, whatever it was, while not overtly hostile, was generally basically watching this woman with an almost inhuman, basically like a scientist watching a bug, folks. An examination is, or should I say, it felt like this entity was examining her, and that's why I would probably want to get out of that house as quickly as possible and out of the area generally. But let's read on a bit more and finish off this article, then discuss this a bit more. My current boyfriend believes I imagined the creature, but he refuses to go outside at night when he visits. I have asked people I trust for their opinions, but I know that none of them generally believe in me. I have considered moving, but I love this house. So that's why she has not moved, folks. As I said, this entity feels like it was basically observing this woman, almost with a, clandestine or scientific curiosity. As I said, folks, it's only because this thing sounds more alien to me, at least on some level. Now, let's move on to the next story, folks. Titled, Gettysburg Battlefield Full-Bodied Apparition Was a Union Soldier Photographed Near Devil's Den. Now, we're going to basically be looking at several photos in this particular story, folks, that basically, they are certainly intriguing. But are they actually of a ghost? Let's read on and find out. A mysterious photograph reportedly surfaced during the summer of 2023 showing a dark, human-like figure standing along Sickles Avenue near Devil's Den at Gettysburg National Military Park. The figure has been interpreted as a possible Civil War soldier, but the absence of a confirmed capture data and original file and photographer's testimony leaves the image open to several explanations, including the fact that it might be just, some sort of, Civil War reenactor, folks, that was photographed by the road. There's definitely that possibility. As you can see here, folks, it does look like this guy is wearing a Union, military uniform. You see the blue coat, and you see basically these sort of lighter blue, maybe jeans here, folks. But maybe that's because they're dirty. If indeed this is a spirit, folks, I can believe it. But the thing is, this doesn't look see-through. The legs look solid. If basically they do seem to blend in with the background, because people have noted that basically this entity, generally, as you can see with this close-up here, folks, as I said, there are several photos, but they're all basically just variations on the same photo that was taken. This entity does look like he's wearing, a Union uniform. It looks like it has a fanny pack, or basically a sort of a bag that it's carrying, folks. But do you see any insignias or any indications that this entity worked for the United States government, especially around, the 1860s or so? I don't see any insignias, or even two of them, but it's possible, I think. Now, here's the general area where this took place, folks, in Gettysburg. Or basically a picture near the same, place, folks. Either way, it gives you a general idea of basically what was going on, who this entity could have been, folks. Maybe a war reenactor, or maybe it really was a spirit. Or it could have been maybe some sort of digital, image, perhaps created basically using CGI, I can't be for sure. It looked pretty real to me, folks. In fact, it looked like just a guy. It's just a costume to me, folks. And here we have another image of Gettysburg, folks, of the same general area where the photo was taken. As you can see, folks, this is a historical site, and if anywhere in America is haunted, it would be this place, this general area, Gettysburg. But let's read on with the actual article that came with these photos now. Historic ground near Devil's Den. The reported location is close to the Triangular Field and Devil's Den, two prominent areas associated with the fighting on July 2nd, 1863. More than 5,000 Union and Confederate soldiers fought around Devil's Den. The engagement involved repeated attacks, counterattacks, close infantry combat. That's a whole lot of that, huh, folks? Yeah. It also had artillery fire and fighting among the area's massive boulders and stone walls. Confederate forces eventually overwhelmed the Union position at Devil's Den, captured the crest and 3 artillery pieces, and occupied the location for approximately 22 hours. More than 1,800 men were killed, wounded, captured, or reported missing during the fighting around the den. So a lot of bad things happened there, folks, and a lot of people died during that day. Now, I thought basically there were more people that died at Gettysburg, over 10,000 people and stuff like that, around 18,000. So I'm kind of glad that isn't exactly what happened there, folks. But then again, I really was sure that it was basically over 10,000 people that died, 18,000. Is that a mistake? Probably not, but yeah. If it was 18,000 people, folks, it'd probably basically be, it is considered one of the worst death tolls in American history, or basically one of the most tragic. But yeah, I can understand why people would basically, even now talk about the horrendous casualty rate of it, even if it was only 5,000 people, folks. If it was 18,000, it'd probably basically be remembered even more. It would be remembered in a very bad light even more than it already is. But now, folks, let's finish off this article and talk a bit more. The Triangular Field lies immediately west of Devil's Den. The surrounding battlefield extends toward the wheat field, Peach Orchard, Little Round Top, and the low ground known as the Valley of Death. These locations have become some of the most frequently mentioned areas in Gettysburg. Paranormal lore, apparitions, disembodied voices, unexplained battlefield sounds, shadow figures, and soldiers who seemingly vanish have all been described to visitors over the years, folks. Yeah, people have seen these entities, folks, or basically said they've seen these entities. Could it all be in people's imaginations? Yes. This is the kind of area, especially with how many people did die here, folks, that people say is considered even right now by a lot of people, folks, to be completely haunted. But maybe that's due to basically just hype, maybe just fear, and maybe people letting their minds run away with them, folks. I definitely think that's a possibility. But I've seen other videos and evidence that is saying that basically, or should I say testimony from people that really do believe that this area, Gettysburg, is haunted. And to this very day, folks, the spirits still roam this area looking for release. Now, what about the first story, folks, with this white werewolf-like entity? Is it real? Could it be some sort of nature spirit along the lines of basically, say, a crypto-terrestrial? Some entity that's always haunted the land, folks, and then basically made itself and its presence known to our witness here, folks? Is that why it seemingly was watching her? It might have been watching her for quite a while, and even to this very day, folks? I'd say, yeah. If this entity is something along those lines, it definitely probably is still there and is still watching her. But why? What makes this woman different from any other witness? Maybe because it can, see her. Maybe she she has some sort of psychic power. Maybe that's why this entire incident happened. Either way, folks, we're at the end, so please go subscribe to my YouTube channel, Read Comics That Are Bad For You. You can use the YouTube link down below in the descriptions or the chat to go subscribe to me. Hit that like button for me. Make sure you're still subscribed. Leave some comments down below. Hit that bell for notifications. Make sure at the part of the bell that give you all future notifications, and please share this video out. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow with another great video, so be sure to come back again then. Until next time, folks, I'll see you all again soon.